Honorable Mr. Justice Shah, Justice Manmohan, Justice Jasmeet Poonamji, Sir, Chief Sir, and all the friends present here. In the last two sessions, today and yesterday, I think the tone for the session has been set. I'll just quickly pick up 2-3 threads of what has been said and in brief just highlight and focus the issues on which we need to develop constantly, continuously, because this is a journey. It doesn't end here, it continues. And there's always been a lot of confusion about meditation and mediation. That has always been an issue. I remember in 2010-11, Delhi government was the first to set up a pre-litigation mediation center with the name of Delhi Dispute Resolution Society. I happened to be the first director, and the whole setup was created. So the first thing we did was we sent the emails inviting people to join us. And lo and behold, all the emails were from the meditation trainers. So everybody thought there's a spell mistake. It is not mediation but meditation. And this happened when we got invited by one RWA for awareness. And there the banner said meditation gurus teaching, and when we went there, we were taken by surprise because we were not there as meditation trainers, and there was a huge embarrassment. And the way we tried to cover it was to say, don't worry, because there is only a difference of one tea. In meditation, there is one tea. We'll serve you this tea over a cup of tea in our mediation. So don't worry. And what has been said in the last two sessions is where I connect. Meditation and mediation essentially is the same. What Poonamji just now talked about was dynamic meditation. What happens if we have, because this is an advanced course, we have done the basics. I think, jump a little by saying that when we did communications, what were we talking about? That you first let everything being vented out, and then you come to peace with yourself. That's what we are doing exactly in mediation. We let the party speak, and then comes the peace. And that is exactly what happens in meditation. I say mediation is even further than meditation. Why? Because it is empowering. It changes our own personal dynamics with our own selves and also with the people who are around us. There is a complete personality change, because with all this venting out and self-introspection, I have understood myself. I have understood the people around me, and we have built a sink, a bridge. I have been empowered for a key, I think it's a backbone of mediation, self-determination. How do we self-determine? The most difficult thing in life is to take decisions. And it is only when we have sorted out the 6 thinking hats come in, the facts, the emotions, the negativity. It's only when all this goes out, we are in a positive mode, that we can see the skies clearly and can determine things for ourselves. And that is what is most important in this whole process of mediation. What are we doing? We are empowering the parties. And how we do it is through this whole process, which can be summed up into words, but it's a lifetime to learn the skill. And therefore, I always like to begin by saying that it is a personality training. It is self-empowering, it is empowering the society, it is helping us all to learn the technique of taking decisions, to separating our emotions from facts. And that is from where we begin. I'll just keep picking threads from here and there, whatever has been said. I may not be able to take the names, but we all know who has said what. We started with this mediation in 2005, faced maximum resistance. It came from the judges. We always talk about lawyers. It came from judges. It came from lawyers. It came from parties. It came from all over. I can talk about myself, and I don't hesitate, because it's only when you know your own follies can you rectify them. In 2006, when we sat down for this mediation training, I think I was considered as one of the most difficult participants. Why? Because there was a huge question on every word that was being said. And now, after becoming a trainer, I realized you don't like to be questioned so much. You want at least let us slide, everybody's independent, have a right to determine or decide for themselves what is correct, what is not. It is only information. How much you take is your choice. I cannot control, how much information you take from here. My overconfidence or my lack of knowledge was, I thought I can do the best. There is nobody in this world who can decide the matters better than me. As a judge, I've done it for so many years. What are they going to teach me in mediation? And that was the arrogance. And when we sit with this kind of arrogance, you realize that your knowledge is big zero. That's the reason why you're thinking like that. And sure enough, after 5 days, one realizes that there is so much more, and there is so much more beyond court decisions. There is other way of dispute resolution, and there cannot be in this world anything more beautiful than taking decisions for yourself. And we all must develop this art. It doesn't come easy. There's a huge technique, and that is what mediation is all about, which teaches us to take decisions. And decisions which we take for ourselves are everlasting. They are the ones which would be followed, implemented by you without there being any external force by way of executions, which is, we all would agree, being part of the legal fraternity, that the most challenging part in any court is not the decisions. Doesn't take any time. It's so easy. Evidence is there, this or that decide. The most difficult part is execution. And the real truth, the reality of a litigation is in execution, is not in decisions. How am I benefiting by saying, okay, you are entitled? I read one newspaper item, and one of our MACT court decided a compensation of 1 crore 10 lakhs. From whom? A rickshaw wala who had no insurance. So I am very happy I've got an award of 1 crore 10 lakhs. How do I get this money? Am I happy to be told that, look, this is your entitlement? What do I do with these entitlements? Unless they translate into reality. And this I translate in the context of especially the family litigation, where logic works much later. What works the first are the emotions. And we have traveled a long way. Poonamji mentioned about Bangladesh. She is right. I think the leap was taken first by Bangladesh. They got initiated into mediation much before us. But I think they are where they started, while India has actually set the tone for the whole world. Today we are talking of mediation litigation, legislation. It never existed. 1976 was the time, I think, when in Roscoe Pound they talked about ADRs and mediation got introduced. No legislation in the world till very recently. It's only now that Singapore has come up, Netherlands has come up, a few more countries have come up, and I think India, you read their legislations, 4-page, 10 articles. What is that? It is India which has come up with a very comprehensive legislation. Of course, lots of ifs and buts, but I think we all can together sort it out. Another thing which was said about mediation is that the major impact, yes, it is correct. In these 15 years or 12 years that we've had 17 years of mediation, major impact has been felt in the this family litigation. That is because 30, 40, 50% of our litigation today is matrimonial. But it has proved its usefulness for all kinds of disputes. It may have worked a little more in certain cases. MACT rates are about 80, 90. Where money disputes are concerned, about 70%. When we come to matrimonial, it is about 50%. But if we talk of settlements, even 50% is a huge achievement for any ADR mechanism. And I was really, Sadhana ji had put a very nice, I think, qualification when she said all ADRs, all dispute resolution, all litigations, arbitration, they talk and focus only on the past. This is the only mechanism which talks of future, which is of marching forward. And therefore, this becomes an extremely important ADR mechanism, which now, as was said, is appropriate dispute resolution. From alternate, we have traveled to approach. Our job as mediators has become so much simple. 2005, first we had to convince ourselves and then convince others that please, we must, join this muhim, as we said. Victor Hugo said, first slide. First. There is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Mediation is here. That's the reason why we all are here to get trained. This training doesn't end here. It will continue for our whole lifetime, for our whole journey that we'll be mediators. So that was one, just a beginning that I wanted to say. Now, again, I'll just pick up the threads from what Sadhana ji again said, and Poonam ji had dwelled further on it, that, when we are a mediator, we have to be aware of ourselves. There are 3 skills that are generally acknowledged when you are becoming a mediator. The first is knowledge. Knowledge, if you do not have the subject knowledge, which is as important as the procedural knowledge of how mediation is conducted, the whole process can be demolished. And we have seen we tend to get into a adjudicatory mode. When you're sitting as mediators, please be conscious. Don't get into advisory modes. And that can be very counterproductive. Though, there's a whole science, but I'll just narrate one example, which happened very, very recently, a week before in the court with us. We took the parties to the chambers. The custody plan interacted with the child. The child said, I go with my father, a daughter, 6-year-old. I choose my father. He is the parent with whom I want to be. The lady seemed so pally and comfortable. In their mutual consent settlement also, they had agreed that the daughter would be with the father because this lady had her own difficulties, but I'll go and meet as and when. And this is what I'm saying, how we get into advisory modes and how we jump to conclusions. So seeing that background and talking to the child who said, okay, then we asked the mother, she said, I'm okay. And they both went out. Half an hour I drafted the whole settlement saying the child would be with the mother, with the father, and the mother can take the child for the weekend. When it went out for signatures at 6 o'clock, the lady said, it is your settlement, not mine. I did not say that. You have decided. So you sign it? And she refused. This is what happens when we don't engage with the parties, when we take a decision for them on certain presumptions. And that is where we need to be careful, and this happens all the time. And that's the reason why parties retract. And therefore, engaging and having the right techniques of connecting with the people is very, very important. Knowledge of the subject, custody petitions. I'll just, because I think my time also doesn't permit me. Uh, in the custody petitions, who should have the custody? What does the law say? That is very important. We have seen as district judges, as in my short tenure here in the High Court, that there is a huge confusion about a parent taking decision on behalf of a child in mediation. Lots of mediations are coming back to the courts. Why? Because the decision on the rights of a child has been taken either by the father or the mother. And personally, I may be excused, I would love to be guided on this. When a child is a minor in any litigation, who represents the minor? The father or the mother? Who's the person who takes all the decisions or files the pleadings on behalf of the minor? The parents. So why should we hesitate in letting either parent decide for and on behalf of a child about their certain rights? The rights of the child are in any case protected by law. After 18, they can repudiate. They can repudiate. If they think, and what our experience has been, that in 80% of these cases, there is no property. There is nothing. It's only in 20% of the cases where the parties have resources where we need to worry. And because this custody or the property issue in respect of the child doesn't get settled, the whole settlement fails. And that's one area where all of us are struggling, where the rights of the child and property and the custody are concerned. Secondly, I personally feel these are inherently interim orders. They are all subject to modifications over a period of time. So if today I feel that this may be in the interest of the child, nothing prevents either parent to go and approach the court in case of change of circumstances. So that's one aspect where we are struggling, and I would be very happy if we can be guided by the experts on this aspect, because that's where knowledge, according to me, is we need to use it more constructively to ensure that the parties are able to settle. The second is, it's written incorrectly, skills. I may have all the knowledge. It's known, it's a fact known to everybody. Those who are most brilliant are never successful in their lives. They are only toppers in class, but in life they may not be toppers. It is those who are practical. Their skills are what they take you on the top. So knowledge, if it is a little less, but if your skills are better, you will be on the top. So skills is not knowledge. Skill is how you apply your knowledge to a given situation. That is what skill is. And the third is attitude. Poonamji, I think, has said very beautifully. Sadhnaji began it by saying your own attitudes have to be correct. Unless we all are, full of emotions, we all have our own baggages. I cannot leave it. It may be there. But when you go to mediation, you have to put it aside. If you are not at peace with yourself, your restlessness gets communicated to the parties, and you can never have that connect, which is absolutely essential for the parties to have with the mediator in mediation. So it is an amalgam of all three, which is practiced throughout, that will become an habit. Then we don't have to think that, look, this is what I need to do. You know it instinctively. And that is what changes your personality. What you do as mediation, what you do as a mediator, changes you as a person. This I can say. So many of our judges who were very authoritative, in the sense the role that we were given is not smiling, not interacting, just be silent, listen and decide. That was historically in 90s when we came in, that was the role that we were given. It was very rightly said, You say the word settle or compromise, a transfer application would be there, because you have got involved with either. I remember when I was doing this rent jurisdiction 97 to 2000, every second day there was a transfer application, because the minute you talked of the word compromise, that's where the judge has got compromised. And whenever somebody said, can we think of compromise, my first said, please go out. Don't say this word in my court, go outside, settle. If it gets settled, come back. But don't ask me to intervene. And that's from where I think from adjudicatory to this mediation, that's the big change which has come today. And I think the more we would proceed in this, more at peace, what we are looking at, we'll be able to bring. And even if one family, one case gets settled, look at the number of people who get impacted by that one case. So that is where our future lies. When I talk about this, I would like to share one example. Again, in this Delhi Dispute Resolution Society, we were impaneling the mediators, and there was one senior bureaucrat, because that was the first project taken in by a government on pre-litigation mediation. And recently Supreme Court has said replicate it all India. In all the consumer forums, there should be now mediation. There was this very senior bureaucrat who got impaneled as an advocate. Matrimonial is what was the largely coming, and after 6-8 mediations, he came and he said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. He said, I know the skills, I know the subject, I know everything, I have the right attitude. But my problem is that I cannot do matrimonial cases. So my question was, why? What has happened? And what he said was very interesting. Detachment is what we are talking about. He said, I've got a son and I've got a daughter. My daughter has undergone a divorce. My son has undergone a divorce. So whenever I sit in mediation, I connect either with the boy or the girl. And that's where I lose out. And you start siding with one party knowingly, unknowingly. Your neutrality, your impartiality is gone. You become one of the litigant, like was being said with many advocates, this happens. They become parties. And that is where the challenge is. He said, I am not fit in matrimonial cases to mediate. He said, I'll do community mediation, I'll do commercial, I'll do everything. But please exempt me from these matrimonial disputes. After about 1 year, I left. I was told that he became a best matrimonial mediator, because he became aware of his own limitations, of where he need to work on himself before you work on a party. Why my emphasis today is more on mediators? Because that is where our role is. Today, we have to learn of what we are required to do as a mediator. And once you have these skills, you can take the parties anywhere and everywhere. So that is one aspect that we need to work with. Now, another thing, I don't know. So there's another.
I will cut short my speech.
I don't know.
No, you can.
Okay.
Will not speak.
See, the another thing which I feel and has been said in different words. I have my own way of saying it. What is the one quality which you should all imbibe, and the rest would follow? You can compensate. Everything will get adjusted around it. There is this small story about King Solomon. I wouldn't know I'm sure there will be something in Indian history also, but Jahangir was what we talked about. This King Solomon, when he became the king, he became very worried. And that's what happens when we become mediators. He got very worried. He had father David, who was a tremendous king. He was really looked up by the public. So he was very worried how to match his own father, because he will be always compared to him. So he prayed to God. And when God came, he said, what is it that you want? And what do you think he asked for? Somebody. Because he had to match his father. He had to be perfect. He had to be ultimate. What do you think? I think all these words would get encompassed in what he asked. He said, give me a listening heart. That's compassion. More than wisdom, you also need the compassion. And we always, even in the context of judges, we say, compassion is what is most important. Knowledge would be taken care of. A little less of knowledge can still be compensated by your compassion. And that is what we all need to work on. Be compassionate. That is what we all need to be. And there is this, again, a small story which I love to narrate. There is this Alice in Wonderland. All of us have read or heard or whatever. I have not read it, though heard a lot about it. This little girl, my time is over.
No.
Yeah.
No,
That's
take another
sufficient.
15 minutes.
Okay. There is a story when Alice goes to Wonderland. She goes around wandering, doesn't know the place from here to there. She no, not this. Just go on the slide. Yeah. So she reaches a road which divides into two, and she doesn't know which way to go. And whom does she find? Sitting on the tree is the Cheshire cat. Who is this Cheshire cat? Is the cat which has a permanent grin. It's not a grin, it's a look which looks like a permanent grin. And this happy looking cat is sitting perched high on the tree and looking down at Alice. And another quality of this Cheshire cat was that it could rotate its neck 360 degrees. That was again Alice in Wonderland. Now, when the cat is sitting there, Alice looks around, and this is the conversation that they have. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? Kahan jaun main? So the question the Cheshire cat asked, and this is what is very important, where do you want to go? And what is the answer? I don't much care where. So she says, whichever way, it doesn't matter. And she said, it doesn't matter which way you take. And that applies exactly to us. If I'm here in the mediation, leaving it to the parties, whichever way you decide, it doesn't matter. For me, I'm just here because I am a mediator. We will never reach our destinations. And that is what I think Satyanji said, you should know your destination. Only then you can find your way. Unless you know where you want to go, you would not be able to follow the path. Path will be defined by your destination. And this is the small conversation, I think, which speaks volume for all of us. We all need to know where we want to go. And please choose the path. All of you, I again decide for you in saying that you have all chosen the path of mediation. Otherwise, taking out so much of time, leaving your family, your work to be here is not easy. And once you've chosen this path, I am sure all of you are going to enjoy every minute of what you do in mediation. It is not a job. It is a way of life. It is service to yourself, to all your kith and kin, to your family members. And that is where we are, in a very, very happy space. Yeah, so that was one aspect which I wanted to say. Now, we come to what happens. I will just go into major areas. 40 hours already done. You understand the whole procedure. When the parties come to you, you have a dispute, a divorce dispute, a custody dispute. It can be of any kind. Before I go into what I'm talking about, I would just like to say one more thing. When we are talking of mediation, this I think Sudhirji has also endorsed me, and of course our experts are here. Mediation is a skill. It's a skill training. It is not a knowledge training. And you learn the skill not by listening but by doing. And pardon me for doing more of the lecturing, but I think we have lots of exercises so you can practice whatever is being discussed here. It is a skill training, the core competence of how a mediation must be done, to be followed in every kind of dispute which comes from mediation. It be a IPR, it may be commercial, it may be civil, property, any kind. Mediation works everywhere. Of course, there are certain inherent challenges where a dispute may not be suited to mediation. Leaving those aside, it is a skill training. But once you know what are the skills, what you then have to learn as an expert is how much of which skill is to be employed in a certain kind of dispute. And that is where I now come. Every dispute as we see is on substance. इतना रुपया देना है, इतना रुपया लेना है, मुझे डिवोर्स चाहिए, मुझे डिवोर्स नहीं चाहिए. So all is being translated into binaries, yes and no, which is not actually what the dispute is all about. There are three components of any dispute. Now, what these three components are, substance we all understand. 50 रुपया चाहिए तो चाहिए, interest चाहिए तो चाहिए. That's the substance, the core relief that we are looking for. But it is always surrounded by the behavior of the parties. So there are three dimensions of any dispute. First is the substance, second is the behavior of the parties, and third are the emotions. So at the core lies the dispute, covered by these multiple layers of emotions and prompting your behavior. So if we try, more so in matrimonial cases, to directly attack the substance, you would not be able to reach there. It will be deflected by the emotions, by the behavior of the parties. Therefore, when we are talking of the substance, more so in matrimonial cases, first address the emotions. See, let me put it on myself. If I am angry, and I've seen this happen in the court, I will not talk of my personal life, but in the court, I got agitated. Why? Because the parties are trying to, take date, or they're not being honest, and I was so angry. So whatever was said thereafter got deflected. Nothing reached me. Why? Because I'm not open to listening. So we have to work on emotions at two levels, at our own emotions, at the emotions of the parties. How do we do this? Now that is the great skill which will come only with practice. I can just tell you, but please practice it. Try doing it when you sit in mediation. When the party walks in, what happens? The communication starts or no? Why? How? I haven't opened my mouth and you're saying communication has started? Yeah, non-verbal. So I'll talk about myself as a mediator. I'm sitting as a mediator. Two parties walk in. This happened in reality. There was this Rajasthani couple. वो दीवान के कुछ रहे थे, तो वो पगड़ी, वो धोती, वो jacket, and he was dressed like a conventional Rajasthani fellow. Hukum, which I enjoyed. So I made him sit and say, "Ab boliye, hukum hi boliye." Because it feels nice when somebody talks to you in a nice tone. It gives you a lot of positive energy. And then was followed by the wife, who had a small tank top, jeans, smart, hair open, and before they said anything, I had already decided for myself it's a case for divorce. Now what has happened? What has happened in this process? I have become judgmental. I've become judgmental. I have taken a decision now, all my communications, my conversations would be to take them towards divorce. My clothes do not define me. They do not define my disputes. And that is the biggest challenge. Stop being judgmental. Not easy. Not easy. It happens naturally. But that is where you need to control yourself. Don't be judgmental. And why, when I being judgmental, what have I done? How have I become judgmental? I'll come to that. I'll come to that. It's my mind chattering. With whom was I having a dialogue? With myself. And from where was I deriving all these conclusions are my stereotypes. That's where we first need to mind our own stereotypes before we start working on the stereotypes prevailing in the society or amongst a community or inter se the parties. And this happens all the time, all the time. We are judgmental. There's a lot of mind chattering. There is a lot of jumping to the conclusions. And that is the biggest force of communication. So first, practice this art of stilling your mind. And that is where our meditation again comes in. Now, how do we do it? It's easy said than done. One of the most difficult things. I can't help myself from sharing this. It's a joke on ourselves. We were in Chandigarh doing a training and where we had a diverse group of advocates, and there are very important issues which got raised in that, which are again very important, and these are the small tricks which will succeed, with which you can succeed. When the parties come, we assume I'm a mediator, so a superior person. Though in mediation centers we have tried not to have the diocese. Put them at the same level so that they can connect. We have an habit of, presuming of addressing them in a certain way. Never do it without asking them. Can I call you by your first names? Or is it okay if I call you by your surnames or whatever? This is giving respect. And once you give the respect, you immediately develop a connect. This, what I'm talking about, is rapport building. That's the first thing. Relationship quotient, what Poonamji was talking. Today, the first focus is on developing a relationship with the parties. Detachment, neutrality, but unless you connect in your communications, you would not be able to get the maximum from the parties. They are your source of information. They are the ones who are going to give you everything. We don't have pleadings. We don't have evidence. We don't have anything. So who are the source of information for us? The parties. And unless we are able to open that channel with the parties, we would be doing very, very half-baked kind of mediation with incomplete information and knowledge. Now, I'll just share this. In Chandigarh, we had a diverse group. The problem, again, please clarify this. Don't go on a presumption. Somebody smartly dressed, I presume isko to English aati hogi. I've heard so many times when the party is coming to the court, say, please Hindi mein boliye, Angrezi samajh nahi. They're smartly dressed and we presume they know the language. That is not true and correct. I may be able to sign, I may be able to make out something, but if I have to comprehend, I need to have it in my own language. Always ask the parties what is the language in which they are comfortable. This happened in Aurangabad. We were there in the training. My own presumption, and there was some information that Maharashtra is an English-speaking state. So if you go to Maharashtra, there is no challenge. That was in the beginning of our career when we were more comfortable in English. Now Hindi or English doesn't make a difference. So when we went there, I presume that they are all English-speaking participants. So like now started rattling in English for 4-5 days. Only English. Negotiations is a difficult topic, not easy to understand. So the last day when we were asking for their comments, I said, what is the takeaway? He said, the takeaway was, आप अंग्रेजी बोली, बहुत अच्छी बोली, but I did not understand a word of what you said. And that was the eye opener for me. That was the real eye opener, that unless you connect. He said, I tried. आपकी speed बहुत थी, आप बोलती चली गई. 5 minutes I tried. I tried to match with your pace. I gave up. And that is what is important when you sit with the parties in the mediation center. Please don't presume anything. It's always good. A half a second, flag it. You get a better connect. So when you were in this group, पता था ये पंजाब से है, हरियाणा से है, तो हिंदी इज़ नॉट देयर लैंग्वेज. वहाँ पे प्रेसिडेंट भी आए थे, सेक्रेटरीज भी थे बाहर के. So last day, again a takeaway from everybody. What is your takeaway? So this poor president from one of the districts of Punjab, he got up and he had that performance panic कि अब मेरे को बोलना है, अब मैं इतने 50 लोगों के बीच में क्या बोलूँगा, कैसे बोलूँगा. So poor fellow, he was working. He was not listening to what was being said. He was working on himself. क्या बोलूँ. खड़े हुए बोले, मैंने ये सीखा है कि जज आगे भूल गए. This judgmental, he forgot, he just remembered judge. And after 30 seconds, he said, mental नहीं होने चाहिए. And that was it. And then the whole group, of course, laughed, and he got so thoroughly embarrassed. I said, don't get embarrassed, because what you have said is actually the truth. Not many have the courage to say it. You said it. So that's, how you need to connect with the parties. So rapport building is what is the most important thing before you get into anything. And this one district judge told us. He told us that, look, whenever somebody would come to you, they'll come with a long complaint. And especially when the bar comes, the president secretary would only be with the list of, इसने ये कर दिया, ये नहीं ठीक हो रहा, आपका ये नहीं चल रहा, ये नहीं चाहिए, ये नहीं चाहिए. He said the best way of dealing with these issues is, say, all right, we'll listen, we have all the time. Let's have a cup of tea. So serve them a good cup of tea with nice biscuits, wafers. After 5 minutes, they would have forgotten half of their issues. So that is one skill of rapport building. That is what you need to do when you have to do the rapport building. Now there are 2 skills for rapport building. One is mirror and matching. I don't know how many of you have heard about it. One is mirror and matching. What does that mean? There's a mirror and a match? No. What happens is, when the parties come in, how do you empower them? आप उनको कैसे कहेंगे, I am there for you. My saying that I am there for you would not give me that comfort. So you have to demonstrate it. How do you do? You first mirror their language, their behavior. And it doesn't come easy. वो जब walk in करते हैं, आपको उनके level पे जाना है. So उनको अपने, they see a reflection of themselves in you. They don't feel a disconnect. उनको ये नहीं लगना तो बड़े साहब बैठे हैं यहाँ पे हम तो लटिगन गए हैं, हमको ये decide करके देंगे, or they are superior in any way. That is where how you do, you first mirror the parties. And once they have developed confidence in you, you start raising their bar, their level, to make them match your standard. So mirror and matching, you can please Google it. Very difficult to do. This is one technique of rapport building, which needs to be practiced. The second technique is leading and pacing. How do you lead and how do you pace? That's I've tried to really comprehend and read. What I've understood is, if somebody can help me, there is this Hindi की movie का गाना है, फूलों में बहार है, बागों में बहार है. There are 3 lines which goes, and then he says, तुमको मुझसे प्यार है. He says, no. So this is what you do. You state 3 facts. You like a pen, or this is your pen, it's in black color. And third statement is what you want to want them to acknowledge. आपको पेन से लिखना अच्छा लगता है. So what you have done, you have made 3 statements of fact, and by the 4th statement, which is sandwiched into these facts, you have tried to lead them. Right? So that is what is known as leading and pacing. That is one technique for rapport building, and that is what is required to be done before you go into the subject. And once you've done, I think I'll call it off here. Lot more. I think I'm here for a day and a half. If we can, I'll squeeze a little more. So thank you very much.